My topic was consciousness and blockchain or Bitcoin, but it's going to go all over the place. Really, I want to do a question and answer about some things that I've written recently. The first one's come up a couple times this evening, and I was tempted to read it, and I didn't yet. I've run into a potential scenario for which I have no easy answer. Maybe you could help me. Suppose someone you care about is suffering and staunchly believes that the cause of their suffering is improving their life. Providing evidence of the cause-effect relationship with their suffering can create an internal subconscious conflict between ongoing use of the thing causing their suffering to improve their life, because that's what they think it's doing, and the suggestion that the means of improving their life is actually creating their suffering. This could throw them into a kind of depressive tailspin. My current best guess for handling this problem is to make changes that will minimize or reverse the impact of the cause of their suffering, and leave some breadcrumbs along the way that they can follow to find their way to the evidence when they're ready for it. Does anybody else have a better suggestion? Okay, thanks. Yeah, my suggestion for dealing with this situation where somebody's basically viewing a process which is making them suffer as a process that's making their life better. And I'm struggling how to help them because I care for those people. My current best guess about how to help them is to make some changes that minimize the impact of the thing causing their suffering. Well, heck, my wife's not here, so I can spill the example. It's the vaccine. She got it in May. I don't know if she's getting boosters, and I'm not going to ask her because I'm pretty sure she'd just lie to me if she did, or she'll tell the truth if she didn't. It doesn't matter. Because if she's put poison in her body and it's hurting her, I want to do something about it. And my best guess about what I can do about it is encourage her to eat foods that help us recover. And I think one of those is red beets, if anybody wants to know. Spike protein detoxification is what I looked up on the internet, and I read something that led me to red beets because they have something in them. Oh, it's nitrous oxide. Okay. Pine needle tea. Probably, I'm not sure she's going to want to drink any pine needle tea, but yeah, I could get some for myself and ask her if she wants to take it. I like that idea. Thank you. I forgot about that one.
Star anise, yeah, anything that helps with the shikane pathway.
Is there a way we can record these? It's being recorded. Okay, perfect. Oh, thank you. Awesome. If you have a question, call me. Just shout something out because it's too hard for me to see. And I have a bunch of things to read. This is by Edgar Guest, who died in 1959 at 78. He lived 8 years longer than the life expectancy in 1959. And it speaks to what Benny was talking about earlier today, a little bit. Cant is the worst word that's written or spoken, doing more harm here than slander and lies. On it is many a strong spirit broken, and with it many a good purpose dies. Cant, the word. It springs from the lips of the thoughtless each morning, and robs us of courage we need through the day. It rings in our ears like a timely sent warning, and laughs when we falter and fall by the way. Cant is the father of feeble endeavor, the parent of terror and half-hearted work. It weakens the efforts of artisans clever, and makes of the toiler an indolent shirk. It poisons the soul of the man with a vision. It stifles in infancy many a plan. It greets honest tolling with open derision and mocks at the hopes and the dreams of a man. Cant is a word none should speak without blushing. To utter it should be a symbol of shame. Ambition and courage it daily is crushing. It blights a man's purpose and shortens his aim. Despite it with all of your hatred of error. Despise it with all of your hatred of error. Refuse it the lodgment it seeks in your brain. Arm against it as a creature of terror, and all that you dream of you someday shall gain. Cant is the word that is foe to ambition, an enemy ambushed to shatter your will. Its prey is forever the man with a mission, and bows but to courage and patience and skill. Hate it with a hatred that's deep and undying, for once it is welcomed, 'twill break any man. Whatever the goal you are seeking, keep trying, and answer this demon by saying, I can. Thanks. Edgar Guest gets the credit. Excuse me a moment. Oh, that's why. Okay. I have found a great deal of my own happiness, health, and success has come from my tendency to work on disproving my own beliefs. It's like magic. I encourage people to do it as much as I can, but it's rare for someone to have the maturity and faith, not misplaced, in their own intellectual capacity to actually work on disproving their own beliefs. The problem is that we identify with our beliefs. They make our world for us. They run our lives. And if we start letting them go, we're going to be lost, really lost. And that's what stops people. They're like, I don't want to be lost. I'm not questioning my beliefs. Forget it. But tell them, you're smarter than you seem, and you're braver than you believe, and you're stronger than you seem. You're smarter than you think. It's at the end of the Winnie the Pooh book by A.A. Milne. It's one of my favorite things because most people benefit from hearing it and thinking about it. And if you get somebody in that state, you can get them to question their beliefs and let go of the ones that aren't serving them. And that's a beautiful thing for a person to do for another person. Evolution gave us this wonderful gift of millions and millions of neurons. But what do we do with them? Sadly, not enough. That's on questioning beliefs. I wrote it a couple weeks ago. I wrote that on New Year's Day. How cool. Okay. The fundamental problem with our species right now is the general lack of a rite of passage. A rite of passage is a social ritual through which a young person comes to understand that they are now an adult. Hey. They stop obeying those on whom they depend for what they need and start obeying their own conscience. Usually, obedience to their own conscience means respecting their previous caregivers. They escape the most dangerous superstition. Anybody know that? It's a book. Yeah, good book. Yes, Lark and Rose. They escape the most dangerous superstition and take on the responsibility of developing their own rules for life, which is their conscience. And I think we're trained not to do that. And if we can encourage people to do it more, we won't have police officers beating people for not wearing masks. There's a lot of things that are making me upset. But cryptocurrency makes me happy. Yes. Does anybody have questions? Cryptocurrency questions?
Why does cryptocurrency make you so happy?
Oh,
There you go.
very good. Fasting also makes me happy for the same basic reason. We have a system for money. We have a system for health, and they're both pretty corrupt, and they mess up people's lives because, hey, if you mess up somebody's life, they're going to pay you to fix it. And that's basically what the healthcare system is doing right now. And the financial system does it too. And Bitcoin is a way to get rid of the fiat currency system and use something that replaces it. All of the cryptos are. My favorite actually is Monero, XMR. Yes, XMR. And then fasting is a way to give your body time to figure out and heal itself. Because when we're not digesting, there's a lot of energy that's freed up. Wow, I could go into probiotics. If you ingest the probiotics, they're going to live in your stomach. They're going to affect your mood and your emotions, make you a happier person, help you with some confidence. Now I want to raise this. Does it go higher? Maybe not. Okay, good enough. Right, probiotics and health. And where was I going with that?
Living inside fasting, crypto.
Cryptocurrency, Bitcoin and fasting, probiotics, yes, yeah. Okay, I read this book called Fasting and Eating for Health a long time ago by an ice skater. He broke his ankle practicing for the Olympics. Olympic ice skater broke his ankle. Went in the hospital, was there for weeks or months, and his ankle was not healing. Somebody said to him who visited him, said, "Hey, have you tried not eating?" He was like, "Why would I not eat?" And they said, "Well, your ankle might heal if you stop eating." So he did. He stopped eating, his ankle healed. And then he thought that was so amazing that he started studying medicine, and he became a doctor, and he wrote the book that I was reading. So I started doing fasting. And there's a group on Telegram called Bitcoin Fasting Group, which I'm in. Because these are two, to answer your questions, these are two methods individuals can use without relying on anybody, sort of, which I'll explain in a second, to solve problems which the system is currently using to exploit us. So use cryptocurrency, and when you're not feeling good, if you feel like eating, it probably means you should eat. But a lot of times when you're not feeling good, you won't feel like eating. So just don't eat. They say we can go 3 days without, 3 days without water and 3 weeks without food. I think it's actually longer. There's people on YouTube, maybe they're not on YouTube anymore, but there were people on YouTube who would do 10 days without water. I was like, no way. I don't think it's healthy. So I do water fasts. That's why I like Bitcoin. Okay.
What other cryptos do you recommend?
Oh, I like that question. My savings is balanced between precious metals, silver and gold, and cryptocurrencies, which are Bitcoin, Monero, Ethereum, Dash, Litecoin, EOS. Why? I'm not sure. And Bitcoin Cash. EOS I liked because they had a governance model. I don't know if they still have it, but they have block producers who are chosen through election, and the election is run by EOS, so if you have enough EOS, you can get a block producer in, and then they're responsible for making the blocks. And I thought it was a pretty good governance model, so I invested in it. It's a little bit of my savings. Another thing I do is I run a bot. It's called Kraken Grid, and you can find it on GitHub if you want to mess with the code. And you can find it on You can do npm. Well, if you're running Linux, I know some of you are running Linux. Actually, you can get Node.js on a Windows machine too. Okay, once you have Node.js, you can run npm space kraken-grid. Kraken, Kraken -grid. And the reason you want to do that is because it would install, you have to go to GitHub to get the documentation so you know how it works. But basically what it does is, for me, it's taking those 7 cryptocurrencies that I mentioned, and if the price of one goes up and the rest stay about the same, it's going to sell that one. And if it goes down a lot, it's going to buy it for me. And it does that automatically. It does round trips. Do you guys know what a round trip in an investment is? So imagine this is a price chart, right? It's going up. But most price charts don't just go up. They go all over the place. So if it goes up to here and I have a limit sell order up here, it gets up there, the limit sell order executes. Well, now I sold some of that. And it's bounced and it comes back down. It comes back down to here where it was when I made that limit sell order. It's gone up, it comes back down, and I buy it back. It's a round trip. I make a little profit. Kraken Grid does that for me automatically. Once I make one trade, say the current price is here, and I say, well, I want to sell here, I just leave it there and I run the bot. The bot sees that and says, okay, if this executes, Kraken has conditional closes, which means if this trade, this sell that I put in, if it executes, it's going to place another order for me automatically. That other order is a buyback at the original price. So the bot sees that, this executes, this new one shows up down here as a buy. And the bot knows the percentage difference, and it says, oh, you don't have another buy down there. So it takes the same percentage difference and puts it down there and adds a second buy. So now I have 2 buys. And it also replaces the new buy doesn't have a conditional close. So I made the sell with a conditional close. It got triggered, so now there's a buy. The bot comes in and gets rid of that buy and replaces it with a new one, which has another conditional close. So the bot does all that stuff for me. I think it's complicated. Did anybody understand me? A few people? A little bit? Okay, cool. Yeah, and the Kraken Grid is a GitHub project, so anybody who knows how to code can contribute. It works with the exchange Kraken, but all of the APIs go through one function, so that if we want to make it work with a different exchange, we just need to update that one function and add some options or whatever. Oh, I'm in Toastmasters. Do I stand up here and speak well? You guys understand me? Okay, thank you. I credit Toastmasters. And I recommend. It would be great if a lot of people who are interested in freedom got involved with Toastmasters. It's a 501c3, which bothers me a tiny little bit because, man, how much time do I have?
Keep going.
Okay, I'm going to keep going. There's a website called Weiss Paris. It's WEISS Paris, PARIS.com. It's a law firm. And they explain some subtleties in the tax code which indicate the meaning of the word United States in the tax code actually means Washington, D.C. and the territories it owns, which does not include California. There's another section in the tax code that says, basically, if you submit a tax return and you check the box that says you're a United States citizen, you're volunteering yourself as a United States citizen, and so now you're liable for taxes. And you can undo that with this special procedure. And if you do submit the forms to not be a U.S. citizen anymore, you don't pay taxes anymore. But you can never be a citizen of the United States again. I haven't done it, but there's some other subtleties in the United States tax code that I learned from another website called losthorizons.com. the tax system was set up pretty elegantly, because what the founding fathers boxed the government into doing is saying, if you want to directly tax people's income, it has to be proportional to the populations of the states. So a direct tax has to be apportioned. It says that in the Constitution. The income tax is not apportioned. California and New York both pay huge amounts of taxes because those people make a lot of money. So it's not apportioned, which means it's not a direct tax. It's an indirect tax, which means it's a tax on something you don't have to do. Well, you have to make money to live, and you have a right to make money to live. They can't tax a right. So that doesn't make sense. Peter Henderson studied it, and what he figured out is that there's some privilege involved. If you do something in a national park, which is owned by the federal government, then you're exercising a privilege to earn that money. And that makes what you earn income. You can read about this on losthorizons.com or in his book, Cracking the Code. Okay. But they cheat, and so even if you do all that correctly, and you're like, I don't owe taxes because I didn't use any privilege to earn this money, they will still try to force you to pay and steal your bank accounts and all that stuff. So there's some people that use Pete Hendrickson's method, and it works for them. I'm not aware of enough people who have gone through the Weiss-Paris process. It's called revocation of election. Right, because your election is when you file your first 1099 or your first U.S. tax return. The first one is an election to become a citizen of Washington, D.C. According to Weiss-Paris, that's what it looks like. That's what the law says to me, too, when I read it. So speaking of how do you pull the energy out of the people who are making us suffer unnecessarily, it's financial power, and we can pull that away from them by not paying the taxes they claim that we owe. Yeah. Whew. Questions? Yeah.
Can you recommend somewhere for people that don't know anything about cryptocurrency, how to learn about it, like a beginner's, some kind of beginner's class or something?
We use coins.com, I think. Does anybody remember that? Oh.
I teach a Bitcoin 101 course.
Oh, you do?
That works.
Oh, okay, we want to know. We do.
Okay.
Tech people. We're like, say what?
College level course just for beginners.
Okay.
Thank you.
Continue.
There's another element to, I like your question. People ask me questions sort of like that, and I don't have good answers. I don't have answers that they would say, oh yeah, that's exactly what I was looking for. Because I don't want them to get the answer, exactly the answer they're looking for. What I want is for them to become capable of answering their own question. And so the trick there is, when you read something on the internet, and actually this happened to all of us in school, you read something and you're like, well, this doesn't make sense to me. And our instinct is to say, oh, it doesn't make sense to me, so I'm not dealing with it. What's the point? And that does make sense, but we also get dictionaries, and now we have the internet. So the trick is, when you read something and you recognize this isn't making sense to me, read it one word at a time. You might read word, and you understand all those words, but they're put together in a way that doesn't make sense. If that happens, take the smallest part. You can say, well, this is the part, that doesn't mean anything to me. It should, because I know what all those words mean, but in this context, it doesn't. So you put quotes around it, and do a search. And you will get hits that will explain a meaning that you didn't know about. And then you learn, and then you can read that, and now it makes sense. And you just go through the thing that way. And it might seem daunting, right? Because maybe you're reading 2 or 3 pages, and you're like, well, this is going to take me a week, and it should take me a half an hour. it doesn't take you a week, because as soon as you hit the first one and you go on the internet and you do the search and you read something, I mean, light bulbs start going off in your head and you're like, oh, this thing makes sense to me now. And you read the whole thing and yeah, it ended up taking half an hour, just like you expected, because you added the step of saying, oh, here's something I don't know, and here's a tool I can use to figure it out. It is. It's like magic. So many things are like magic. I wrote what am I remembering? A long time in high school, and I wrote it because I realized, well, it's kind of like what I was reading about how we use our brains and how we don't. We use our brains and we don't use our brains, and we kind of learn in school. It goes back to the Pooh Bear quote. In school, we learn we're dumber than we think, and we're weaker than we seem, and we're chicken. That's what we learn in school, and then we grow up and we get a pandemic from a few people that want to make a lot of money, and we all fall into a trap. They know, and some of us, we're all here, wake up, and we get out of the trap. And then we want everybody else to get out of the trap too, but they don't have the confidence. And so that's why I loved Winnie the Pooh when I was little, and I still do. And it's partly because of that quote. So I'll tell you again, you're stronger than you seem, and you're smarter than you think, and you're braver than you believe. And I will be with you always. Questions? Any more questions? No?
That's such a nice play there.
Okay.
Tie it all together, Dan. Thanks, man. Awesome. Appreciate it.
All right. Well, thanks, Dave. That was awesome. We're blessed to have you here. So appreciate you.